Hello everyone and welcome to the Black and White Football Show here on Nova Radio 102.5 FM and across all of Newcastle Fans TV social media from Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it. We are live and we are talking about Mr. Mike Ashley once again, unfortunately. So we're going to be talking about the takeover, the fakeover. And in section 2, we're also going to be talking about should the players take a pay cut. In particular, it's this time of year with the coronavirus, and we also chat about the situation with the NUFC campaigning for season ticket holders to be suspended. And then in the third section, we're going to be talking about that documentary down the road. I'm sure you'll all know what that means. And would it be a good thing if Newcastle United had a behind-the-scenes footage going around the club? Who knows as well. And then in the final section, we're talking about first loves. No, we're not talking about your girlfriend or your boyfriend. We're talking about the first footballer that you looked up to, who was your idol. Eisha is going to be joining me on the phone later on today's show. So, as because of the lockdown situation, we cannot get into Nova Radio's studios, so unfortunately we have to do it remotely. So this is the interactive show that we want you involved. You can see the WhatsApp number on your screen. We'll be reading all your WhatsApps during the show. If you have any questions for me, if you have any questions what me, Sam and Johnny talk about, as we have pre-recorded some Skype conversations. And also if you want to ask Eisha some questions as well for later on the show, fire them at us. The number is 07476497166. So, Takeover at the start of the week, we're going to look at that first. It was very busy Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it's gone a little bit quiet again. Me, Johnny and Sam had a chat about all the carry-on with the Takeover. Go and get yourselves a cuppa, enjoy this. We'll see you coming back very shortly. Remember, get your WhatsApp in.
The Black and White Football Show, Sundays 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
We're going to start with, yes, you guessed it, the takeover. Or is it a takeover? I've got Lee and Sam to discuss this. Lee, let's talk about the takeover. Let's just say Monday night, Tuesday night. There was little whispers of things that potentially could be happening with Newcastle and potential takeover. It's not a completely different party. It's the Amanda Staveley, it's the Reuben brothers, it's the investment fund from the Saudis. Did you initially, before the likes of Chris Roth and Corkin, etc., put their opinion on it, what was your initial feeling around the whole subject of a potential takeover?
Well, weren't we joking a couple of weeks back with this coronavirus situation that had no stories to print, and we will have a takeover update, and hey, we'll have one. So initially on Sunday night I thought nothing of it. It's just a Sunday newspaper doing the gossip. Even by Monday I was still a bit and then it was starting to gather a little bit of momentum on Monday night / Tuesday, and hence why we got Sam to put a video out about it. And when you see George Culkin, when there's takeover, he just doesn't get involved. He just keeps out of it. And this is the first time that he's publicly gone and say there's actually got a bit of legs behind this. Chris Roth occasionally would sit on the fence, occasionally would say something when he was part of the Chronicle. But the Athletic are well respected. I know they're new, they've only been around about a year, but they're very much respected. And it was like, even Sam's reaction to the video was similar to mine. I was like, ooh, wait a minute. But there's still loads of questions that have to be asked around it. Is it genuine? Is it real? The Chronicle have said that. The club have said no comment again. And obviously we'll talk about the club's staff. I'm sure we will later on. But I don't know. I'm still sceptical.
Sam, when you look at it, obviously Tuesday night, you were actually prepared to do a video just on your opinion of everything, really. And then we kind of delayed it an hour. Delayed it by an hour and a half, delayed it by 2 hours because of the fact that George Cork and Chris Roth with The Athletic put this article out and said, look, like Lee says, it's got a bit of legs. It's not officially #canned, but maybe put the cans on ice, maybe a phrase.
Yeah, I mean, the video I initially recorded the other night took a very different tone from the one that actually went out in the end, because the Athletic lads got involved. and it just kind of made you step back a little bit and think, hang on, let's just look at it from both sides and think, Staveley's not going away. The Reuben brothers aren't going away. PIF Saudis, they're not going away. This is a recurring theme. I know journos everywhere are struggling for column inches whilst there's no live sport on. But the stance from the journalists surrounding it are all pretty similar in the fact that talks have still been ongoing. It's obviously a long, arduous process. But the Premier League have been informed by both sides of a potential takeover. And yeah, Cannes, George Corkin did mention on one of his tweets that hashtag Cannes, could well be on the way.
It's important, though, Lee, like Sam says, that the documents are from both sides have been delivered to the Premier League, and not just one side, and not just, say, the buyer or the seller. According to Premier League rules, when the seller says it's close, that's when the Premier League will be a bit more interested in terms of, doing a fit and proper persons test, etc., etc. I think the main point I want to take from all this, yes, everyone's getting a little bit excited, but Lee, there's still no offer on the table.
Rumours, isn't it? When the documentation gets sent by two clubs, it's more promising. Of course it is. Because we normally hear it by... Well, last year we seen it with the Bin Zayed, it was all third party, which I questioned over and over again. How is it strange how we keep getting statements released third party and it's never them directly? It was always given to the Chronicle. It was always given to media outlets. Whereas this isn't as played out as much in the public. It's come and gone the last few months. But... all the media outlets are saying that both the submissions to the Premier League are from the club, which allegedly they're saying no comment, which gives you, I don't know, the hope has a little bit more hope. That hasn't increased me personally, because we've all seen it the last few years with Kenyon, with Staveley, even going the fake Chinese last summer before. For me, I'm still doubtful. It's just the way I am. Some people are believers, hopers. I'm very much, let's say them in a toon shirt holding it up, or get pictured going to the ground or the training ground or something along those lines. I'm still sceptical and very much am.
I think it's still fair to say, Sam, there is so many fans that are saying, look, like Lee says, when they've got the Newcastle shirts and when it's all signed, sealed, delivered, I'll believe it. But Mike Ashley is under a lot more pressure to sell now, has to be said. The share price has dropped dramatically in the last few weeks, but that's due down to everybody. Every company's exactly in very much the same boat. However, what was potentially £340 million is now rumours for just around about £300 million. So is there a willingness from the seller, i.e. Ashley, to sell the club to make his money and run?
There's no simple answer to that because of his unpredictable nature. He's notoriously difficult to deal with, as we all well know by now. The rumours are, again, that there's a willingness on both sides of this deal to get it done. It's not going to be a quick thing. It's not going to be happening any time in the next week or so, because these fit and proper person tests alone take some weeks. Ashley's been known to change his mind on the flip of a coin. So, whilst you want to get your hopes up, and we all want to get our hopes up, not even that if it does go through, it's going to be a super mega rich, interesting takeover. Even if it was just a normal, similar financial level as to where we are now takeover, the reaction would be the same because it's getting Mike Ashley out. But when you're dealing with a guy like Mike Ashley, you can't take anything for granted.
I suppose. But Lee, there's obviously people who are a little bit sceptical again because the fact of everything that's going on with COVID-19. Why would people want to make deals now? And I think it was Chris Waff that said that, well, they're here for the long term, regardless if it's done today, next week, next month. They want to get a deal done because they see a long-term vision for the football club. Who's pushing for this deal?
It's got to be the buyer, surely, first. The buyer's got to have it and want it. If you want something from me, Johnny, you're going to approach me, aren't you? It's the same
Well,
as...
it depends what it is.
maybe a star roll the next video.
Who knows?
But it is, if you want something, you wouldn't let that come to you. That's not going to happen. There is obviously rumours going around that Mike Ashley, of course, wants rid of it. He's never had interest in years, and then has there ever been a proper, genuine buyer who can prove that they've got funds? Probably not. We've seen the rumours of Kenya in the past that he's tried to go around and get Americans involved. We've seen it with Amanda Staveley hasn't got the money. The Chinese, for me, was just a smoke screen. But I think Ashley does want to get rid of it, but it's got to be the buyer who wants it. And you mentioned COVID-19 because that could affect the price. If we don't play, if the season gets written off, surely that'll devalue the club a little bit, not hugely, but it might save the buyer 20 million perhaps, because the lack of funds that the club have suffered. Because is the Premier League from BT, from Sky and international rights still going to pay those TV rights if there is none, or if the club behind closed doors? So COVID-19 will have a small factor. I don't think it will big time, but the buyer, pardon the pun, and Rob will like that, show me the money.
Very much so. It does come down to price, Sam, and almost how much do you want it. But when you look at the share price of Fraser's, the Fraser Group, I think it's between 180 and 185 last time I checked. So it's not looking good for Mike Ashley in terms of everything else. And obviously you've seen the negative PR over Sports Direct in the last week, 10 days or so. Maybe he's just gone, do you know what? If there's any time to sell it, the best time to sell it is now. I know I still want the deal on my terms, but it actually could work in his way almost.
It could, if he wants to get rid, like the rumours lead us to believe that he wants rid. Businesses are suffering everywhere, so it's not just him. However, he's struggling more than most. Otherwise, why else would he try and keep his non-essential business open and try and make out it's essential when it really isn't? You don't need Dunlop golf clubs when there's no golf courses open. So there's no need to open your shop.
I've heard you've got a big back garden, Stan, to be fair. I've heard you can do at least 9 holes in your back garden. Look.
My back garden's tiny. Absolutely tiny. But
how many acres did you say?
Hectares we measure it in round here, pal. Acres is just too small. But he's the time is now to go, and I don't know whether you two would agree with me, but I think this is the most serious kind of takeover. I don't want to use the word bid, but I just have. But I think this is the most serious takeover kind of bid he's ever had.
I thought he hasn't had a bid yet.
No, but the bid, right? I've seen a lot of this week from fans, especially on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter a lot, saying that there's no price or you wouldn't buy a house like this. I'm led to believe from the research I've done that when you go through the dealings of buying the club, the actual fixed price thing is one of the last things you actually do. So you start off, you have a ballpark figure in mind, and then the actual price is fixed towards the end. That comes towards the end of negotiations. So that's not unusual. I could be wrong. Feel free to slate me in the comments, which I probably will, having said something like that. But that's what I'm led to believe.
You've also got to consider as well that Newcastle United isn't just one club. There are several clubs who have a say, as my cat I thought would make the appearance. Black and White, if you're listening. But there is several of smaller companies that have a small interest. And it's not just the club you've got to do dealings with. It's all these companies, allegedly, that are in Newcastle United. So Mash Holdings, obviously, the parent company, is how many have, I don't know, they put into there or outsiders have came into there. So if there is 10, 11, 12, you're going to have to negotiate all of them to get rid of them as well to make it all in one. And I'm guarantee if Mike Ashley sells the club, is that you'll have some sort of money still, whether it's ties, whether it'll be something that you'll cling on to, because he's driven by money, let's face it. Will he just allow Newcastle United just to go? No, I don't think so. If he sees a money opportunity, he'll hang on to something for at least 3 years, 5 years, or whatever it may be.
I slightly disagree, because you could go, well, we don't want anything. We don't want any more of what you've had at this football club. Would you prepare a little bit more money?
But what
like Sam says, that's the final decision is obviously the full price. Could you go, well, here's an extra 5-10 million to go, well, or I'm just putting any random number here, but just to go, look, we don't want any more Sports Direct, for example, we don't want any more Fraser, we don't want any naming rights with you. We want it to be our investment.
Well, put it this way, I think Sam will probably agree with me on this one then, if you're not, Johnny. Mike Ashley will not walk away without something something to hold on to. I genuinely believe he'll hang on to, whether it's that sports advertisement that are on around St James's Park stays up for another couple of years, whether it's a naming right as some sort of executive box or whatever it may be small, he will not just let it go. He needs a deal and more. Money's great, 320 million, whatever.
That's the thing, because we've read in the press this week that kind of, not a sticking point, but one of the issues where he wanted to keep a corporate box. Why? He never comes to games. What's the big deal about wanting to keep a corporate box? I think the Sports Direct marketing around the stadium, that's here to stay for a good few years yet. And also little tiny things like the club shop. Club shop's registered as a Sports Direct, is it not?
Yeah.
So what happens with the club shop?
The 9 bar, who owns that? They can go all the way around. You can talk about the Terrace Bar. You can talk, again, this is smaller companies inside St James's Park again.
It is difficult because obviously, look, regardless if it's a house, a business, it's a very, very difficult deal to do regardless. And you're talking about a big Premier League club, a top 10 Premier League club on history. And, if you were to ask any random person on the street, if someone says Newcastle United, you're probably saying one of the top 10 clubs in England. So it's going to be a difficult deal regardless. I think, obviously, we're in unprecedented times as it is anyway, gents, but do we see a deal being done soon, as in the next 3 to 6 months, or does it just depend on how much give and take both sides are willing to do? I'll ask Sam first.
If a deal's going to happen, you've got right. The feeling is this is kind of do or die time now. If it's not going to happen this time, the chances are we're going to be stuck with Ashley for a good few years yet, because this is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund, with local businessmen such as the Rubens, plus a broker like Amanda Staveley, who obviously, as we know, brokered the deal for Manchester City. It ticks all the boxes from a kind of what you're looking for in a buyer. If it's going to happen, it will happen in the next kind of 6 months. So it's not a quick thing, as we've just been discussing. There's a lot of intricacies to the deal, but it's just kind of hope and be patient, because we've all been here so many times before. We're all sick of takeover stories. We only have to put a takeover story on our social media feeds, and half of it is, oh, please, the other is, oh, shut up. So if it's got to happen this time.
Lee, anything to add on that? Do you agree with Sam?
I think if it needs to get done, because we've already seen season ticket renewals are up now, and some people are already being charged, which again, you'll highlight that again later, which we did again last week as well. In terms of the deal, obviously we expect the season to be delayed, which everyone is because of COVID-19. So that might give a bit of leeway to try and get that deal a little bit delayed, a little bit further if needs be. Ideally, you'd want that ready for the summer. Now everyone thinks it's going to start, and obviously there was jokes about Kylian Mbappe and all of that last year. That's not going to happen. You might see a small bit of a spree, but it won't be huge amounts because of financial fair play. You've got to earn that back within 3 years, and we've seen the club's profits, that it's not much that they make in profit every year. It isn't much considering if you look at like bigger clubs, like world-renowned clubs in the Premier League. And unfortunately, Newcastle isn't a big club anymore. It is a mid-table club in terms of where we are now. For a neutral, you probably think of Newcastle United, think of the fans first now. That's probably what I would probably think if I was a neutral. I look at Newcastle, I think of the fans first, the stadium second, because the football team's not very successful, where commercial rights isn't very successful. I think that's the thing that if the new owners were to come in, that's probably the first thing they look at is commercial, because you've got to start bringing money into the club. But putting the answer short is I think it needs to be done before the end of the season. When that will be, you're probably talking late July, even worst case scenario, early August, isn't it?
I think it is. You're looking at, into the deep of the summer, really, and it's going to be strange if the season gets back ahead in June, July, to get the season done. I think, obviously, just as a normal football fan, you might not even see the start of the season until maybe late September, early October. So again, very, very strange to say the least. I want to touch a little bit about Amanda Staveley, because her name was repeated throughout this whole deal, and it has been for maybe 3 years since obviously she was seen against Liverpool, I believe, in the 1-1 draw, where the famous and Rob's favourite ever Newcastle striker Hossley got
I wasn't
the
there.
score sheet.
I wasn't there. I was summing it up with Mike Ashley's favourite part of the world, Miami.
So the next holiday that you're going at, you miss a Newcastle game, Amanda Staveley will be at that next game. So whenever Newcastle's next home game is, Lee, just get yourself away from Newcastle.
I'll go to Dubai if we can get there.
Exactly. But Amanda Staveley, discuss what is her. She wants the deal. She wants to make a deal, but she's always wanted to be involved in a Premier League club. But she's always been involved with trying to become something at Liverpool because of being a fan of Liverpool. Newcastle to her is like second best at the minute. And is it desperation yet, Sam, or is it just almost admiration of a willingness to get a deal done?
I don't think it's desperation, or why would she have bothered for the past 3 years? That's been 3 years now that she's been kind of sniffing around St James's Park. So again, from the reports we've had this week, is she would make up kind of one of the executive positions at the club, along with, and this is a good thing to watch out for actually, because the Rubens would have, I think David Rubens' son Jamie, who's currently on the board of directors at QPR. So obviously there's a conflict of interest there. So one thing to keep an eye out for is if the news comes in that Jamie Rubin leaves QPR, something could be afoot. So that's one to keep an eye on. And then the head of the PIF, Yasser El...
Good luck.
Go on.
No, I can't, the name's escaped me.
Just call him Yasser.
Yeah, I thought that's you doing that, not me. Yeah, they would make up the kind of executive positions. But, she's absolutely... She must be desperate to do this deal, and she must have kind of some admiration.
She's driven.
Exactly, otherwise why haven't they moved on and bought, I don't know,
a West Brom or a Palace or
Leeds or someone like that.
I think Staveley sees Newcastle is, and this is no disrespect to any of the North East clubs, but Newcastle is the capital of the North East. It's where the most jobs are. You carry on that into football. Yes, we haven't been very successful in the last 50 years. Middlesbrough more recently. However, Middlesbrough are not in the Premier League. Newcastle is predominantly in the Premier League, and then you've got support from Durham all the way up to the Scottish borders. You've got a massive fan base. You've got a stadium which is sitting in the city centre as well. There's a few things that are getting ticked here, and the potential of Newcastle to move that. And we always talk about potential all the time with this club. But if someone was to come in, that potential could be, and it's a big if. I think she sees that is because it should quite easily, like I say, pick up Crystal Palace. It's in London. It's easy to get out. It's easy to get foreign investment. It's easy to get the best players. Look, she'll promote London instead of Newcastle. It's like way out. You know what I mean? We've all driven to London. It's tough. However, there's no one around. If there's money invested in Newcastle, there's no one else to touch with in this area. Not saying that we're going to win trophies, but if you look at round the North East in general, it's struggling. It is. Yes, we're the Premier League side, but you look at the last 50 years, we've got one trophy between the three big guns of the last 50 years. Two if you include Sunderland's FA Cup, I think it is. So maybe two. But I think she sees that as a few things ticked, and she could, fingers crossed, get to that next level.
That's the most important thing, Sam, isn't it? The next level. Because the minute, like Lee says, we're hovering around mid-table. If you look at our last 2 or 3 positions in the Premier League, it's 10th and 13th. And if you're looking at this season, it's going to be somewhere between, say, I'll be optimistic and say 10th and maybe 15th. So, again, can we get to that next level? Can we get to maybe flirt with the likes of Wolves, for example? Because if you look at where Wolves have, and how they've done the last couple of years, they look like a team on the up, and they look like potentially, if the season was to get back going again, having a real fight for the Champions League.
So there is two clubs that I would point to, one of which you mentioned there is Wolves. The other would be Leicester. Now, and I would still be saying Leicester were, ignore their title-winning season, because obviously that was just freakish in every sense. But the thing is, you've got ownership there who have embraced the areas. They've invested not just in the club and the infrastructure, such as training grounds, academies, this, that and the other, but the areas around the stadium. So Wolves' owner, for example, they did out that horrible tunnel that you've got to go through, near on the...
Where you fear for your life. Exactly,
yeah. That all looks nice now, whereas once you'd be holding your mother's hand going through there. But it's about embracing not just the club, but it's the area. So, all right, we all want to move on to the next level and get back to where we were at the time of Sir Bobby, but it's about having an owner that cares as well, which, of course, it's been way too long since we've had that.
Well, also, I just want to point out as well, Rafa Benitez left because there was no ambition showed by the owners.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to stick around. He waited and waited and waited. Got up, got with mid-table. Okay, we're now a stable mid-table team. What can we do now? I want to at least go for Europa League. He wasn't backed. And then as soon as Rafa Benitez leaves, you get a Brazilian striker in who no one's really heard of, who cost an absolute bomb. And then you see players like Perez. Even though Perez has triggered his release clause, I think he still would have stayed if Rafa was here.
Yeah.
And I think Rondon will still be here. You could have built on that. And then, so we went backward a little bit. But if this new ownership would come in, again, does Steve Bruce have the opportunity to manage? It opens up loads of questions. Do you go and get a world-class manager, bring it back in? It's a good debate, but these are only ifs if you can move us to the next level. And I think at the moment, you would risk anybody ahead of Ashley. I know it's that saying, careful what you wish for, but I think 99% of Newcastle fans will say, I want to risk it.
I think so. I think a lot of fans will be definitely on that side, but it's a good point that you've made, Lee, with Steve Bruce. And you think of Steve Bruce, you think of the players. So they were going, well, this rumour isn't going away. The press have got a hold of it. Mike Ashley's struggling. What do you think they're thinking?
Well, I think this takeover happens, right? It's signed, sealed, delivered. Now you're building the commercial, but you've got Steve Bruce in charge. I don't think he will last long. And I know he's a nice bloke and he wasn't very well liked at the beginning of this summer, but he's proven a lot of people wrong. Granted, the season's not over. We could still go down. Highly unlikely. Very unlikely now because we're on 35. FA Cup quarter-finals. I think he would have took that. He would have bitten his hand off at the start of the season losing Rafa. But is Steve Bruce I know he probably deserves a chance, but I just think what will happen with Mark Hughes at Man City would happen with Steve Bruce. I think they'll want a glamorous name, someone with a CV. If the takeover does happen, and Steve Bruce unfortunately will go, and I think that will happen if there is a takeover. Not straight away, maybe 6 months, but I don't think he'll be in for the full season.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think final point on this part, I think is the obvious question. Lee, you're doubtful of everything, but if you were to put your money on it, can you see it happening?
I'll put a £5 on it. That's how much confident I am. Probably percentage.
Lee's a very wealthy man.
Percentage-wise, I would probably rate it 20%.
20%. That's okay. Then, Sam, percentage-wise, how would you say it?
Probably. It comes back to the beginning. So we've gone in a circle. So before the Athletic lads have got involved in the story earlier on this week, I'd have been along the lines of 20%. Now, 50-50.
That high? Wow.
It has to happen. This has to be the time now. Otherwise, forget it. It's never going to happen.
I think that's I know I was going to end it, but I think it's a big point. If, for example, Lee, this takeover doesn't happen, and all these journalists have said it's got legs, it's moving. Craig Hope, big fan of Bruce and ASM, he's jumping on it as well now. There's a lot of media outlets jumping on this. Do you know what? You can't trust a single journalist in the North East if this does not happen now.
First of all, I'll point out Craig Hope's not a very good journalist. Secondly, some of the respected ones, you probably look at your Sky ones. Keith Downey's been very quiet at the moment. He hasn't said much. I know Pete Graves has. So they're probably two. Probably Pete Graves more so because he's one of us. Hexham lad, isn't he? He lives in Gosforth now. But yeah, you probably look at the two Sky lads that cover the Newcastle. And then you probably look at Culkin. Maybe the odd Times. The Times and Telegraph have good reputations. More so than the others. But I think some journalists have been squashed their reputation in the past. Like, does anybody rate the Chronicle, for example, to break a story if it's real? Have their reputation been... They've got a lot of new writers, but I would probably push it towards the two Sky lads because they wouldn't want to report nothing bad because they both get flack if they get it wrong. And then you see the replies and what they get on Twitter. It's not just one reply, it's 20, 30, 40. So I think they'll be very careful what they say. So I would probably follow the two Sky lads.
Sam, do you agree? Is it the Sky lads maybe? But again, the whole overall question is, especially in the North East, if they don't get this, if this takeover does not happen, and everyone's kind of almost starting to put their necks on the line, if this does not happen and it breaks and it falls through, no one's going to trust the word anybody says now.
Well, no one's good, and they won't be trusting their sources either. So there's a snowball effect. Sky have been very quiet with this week. There's not been a peep on Sky Sports News, and when considering how slow news is in the sporting world, that may come as a bit of a surprise that nothing's been mentioned about this. But obviously, last time you had the likes of Jim White saying, "Oh, this is going to be completed, done and dusted within the next 48 hours."
Probably got his sources from TalkSport.
Well, exactly. Hazard of the job, I suppose. But
look at Craig. Look what happened to Craig Hope when he said about the bus up with Bruce, yeah. And the amount of flack that then Craig Hope got, and it was loads, and it wasn't just for a day; it was like for a week. Because you got
don't defend him now. You just said he wasn't very good. Now you're trying to defend him.
No, I'm not. He's not very good. He's not very good. He slated Bruce, and Bruce called him out in the press conference and had to go back at him. Called him out, and I like that. And then obviously Craig Hope's got a lot of slack on Twitter, and rightly so. I think you got that story wrong. But to give you an example, that's just one story, but it can take a knock-on effect. So be careful what you say and be careful what you print because some people are gullible.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and it'd be a great debate in the comments. And if you're listening, obviously you can get involved with WhatsApp. The number will be mentioned by Lee at the start of the show. He's mentioned it, and he's mentioning it in the break, which we're going to have now. So yeah, so get your comments in regards to Takeover, whether you think it's going to happen or not. And in part two, we're discussing everything in regards to Newcastle's staff and how they're one of the first Premier League teams to get the government to help them out. I'll take you back to Lee now.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio North East.
There we go. I've unmuted myself, so apologies about that. So you can tell we're live because these kind of things happen. So we are live, right? As I was saying then, so Paul and Johnny are in the live chat as well. So it's good to see some Newcastle Fans TV members as well. The Allegri situation. I mean, we can dream about Allegri. I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? So we can always dream, but. Let's have a little look at what you have sent in on the WhatsApp as well. And remember, this is the guaranteed way that you'll get your WhatsApp messages read out. So, no name. And he said, seen the news about Cashley banning Newcastle games on TV. That's a rumour, really. I can't, it's not really... Look, if you're throwing money at Mike Ashley's, he's not going to turn that down. I can't say that. Liam from London is in the chat as well. He says, let's say we get taken over. What do you expect? I said on Twitter, I expect to be around mid-table for a couple of seasons and then build on from there, similar to what Man City. And he's not saying that we will be the next Man City, but you can see that trajectory. If that was to be the case, And look, we can always dream it. It's this thing that was me. I'm very sceptical on a lot of things with the takeover. I don't get excited by it, but if that was to happen, of course, hashtag canned, and Sam will be drunk outside St James's Park as he's promised, and Paul will run down naked on Sports Direct next to there in Northumberland Street. So keep an eye out for that. That'll get views. I cannot see it yet at the moment. I'm very sceptical, but if it was to happen, people are being a little bit over the top saying we're going to get the world's best players. That doesn't happen because of financial fair play. You'll have a small burst of players buying, but yeah, I would agree. It'll take a while for us to get in the Champions League yet. I think the squad's way off. We've got William from Belfast says, hi lads. Will from Belfast, love the show. Big Mike will never sell up. Look at the money he is making. I've got to agree on that, Will. He's a money-making machine, and we've seen it last week when he tried to keep his stores open, didn't we? So that didn't go down well with the government. A message from Poland, from Andrew. Thank you very much. Hello, guys. Andrew from Poland, one more time. I know you're going to be live this evening, so I want to ask an important question for all the two nations, so all of you can reply to this in the live chat. We know the current situation is very dramatic for people, and because of all the circumstances, cannot watch our beloved club in action. There's a big problem with tickets and annual payments. We're actually talking about that in the next section. I understand that people don't want to pay nothing, but the other side is who should take part in that responsibility. We are making money for this club by buying tickets. Here in Poland, my local team is running because of US supporters who really love the club, and we're already buying virtual tickets to make some money for the club. It's that old thing in it. Season tickets make actually money, the club does. People who buy merchandise, whether it's strips, whether it's match programmes, people who go to the pub say that they don't fund Mike Ashley will want cent you off because he's spending money in the pub, who has to pay for the rights to show a BT Sport game or a Sky Sports game, and it's not cheap, trust me, the business rates for pubs like that. And then you've also got things like people who pay for BT Sport and Sky Sports actually are paying more, contributing more to clubs than what a season ticket holder does. It's one of them, isn't it? It seems like everybody's paying. You can't really escape unless you have nothing to do with it, you know what I mean? So, Scotty says, I haven't believed in any takeover since the WWE, since Vince McMahon wanted to buy the club. Very interesting. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick break, and then we'll come back and we're going to be talking about the Newcastle United staff being put on furlough and season tickets because money is still being coming out. You can also try and answer this quiz, and I'll shout out people who get this right. Go and get a cuppa. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Light it up and we smoke. Keep me high up off the ground. In a haze, in the crowd. We ain't ever coming down. We ain't ever coming down.
Right then, so how many has got that? How many times did David Ginola play for France whilst he was at Newcastle? And the correct answer, drumroll, was 0. He was blamed largely for France not qualifying for the 1994 World Cup. And he was largely blamed for his, I think it was a back pass in that game, but he never played for France whilst he was at Newcastle. It's a shame that, because he's a hell of a talent. We'll be talking about David Ginola later on in the show as well. Right, so moving on to section 2. Before we go back to the Skype clips, the news had broken, of course, on Friday that the Premier League has been suspended until further notice, effectively, because the government are watching the situation with the coronavirus, and we're still on that upward curve at the moment. So all football has been suspended for the time being. It's the next round of game of fixtures that was meant to be was that weekend commencing. Well, they said late April, but realistically would have been the 2nd of May, which was on the Saturday. So then that's a month away now. How realistically are we? Is it going to be safe to play games? Is it going to be behind closed doors? I actually think it'll be behind closed doors for the first couple, I think, because you're running out of time now to try and get the season finished off, and I think you might look at a couple of games, 2 or 3, behind closed doors until that curve starts coming down as well. Not great, of course, at the minute with the situation. Football's a fantastic distraction, whether your team wins nothing or your team wins a lot of trophies. Us Newcastle fans are the lesser of that. We're going to talk about the next section, which is about the staff being put on furlough leave, and currently at this present moment of the recording, as we are live, none of the Newcastle players as of yet have agreed to a wage cut. We know that the Premier League have asked clubs for a 30% cut. Again, this goes back to Mike Ashley and the situations. Why can't your players at least take a little bit of a cut to save jobs at Newcastle if it is that dire? Must stress before recording this, big shout out to Danny Rose, who's donated a lot of money, a 6-figure sum. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was something like £130,000 to go to help communities, including the NHS. So Danny Rose is going to come out with this with a little bit of a bit of praise, because in the next section we do question the ownership once again about Mike Ashley. I'm going to hand it back over to Johnny over on Skype.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Obviously, COVID-19 has taken an effect on the sporting world, but it's actually taken an effect on the sporting companies. And Newcastle United were the first club in the Premier League to follow the government of putting a furlough in for the staff, of basically the government paying 80% of their wages, and the company will put Newcastle as an example, paid up to the 20%. Some companies have got it 5%, 10%, but we believe Newcastle have done 20%, so the staff are getting their full wages. Tottenham have also joined this as well. Daniel Levy's got a lot of stick, but Newcastle haven't really got a great amount of stick compared to Spurs. Lee, were you shocked by the news?
It's a disgrace, isn't it? Of course it's a disgrace.
It's not great.
I know Norwich City have as well, but I seen yesterday that Norwich have the players have chipped in, donated 200,000 for the local community as well. I think it's a disgrace, because you're not looking after those 400, 500 people, however many staff we've got. Obviously, we've got a lot of contact with the foundation lads as well that we're helping with, so they'll be affected. People might not think that 20% is much, but if you're getting 400 quid, 500 quid, that's quite a chunk of your money that's getting taken out. That might be, I don't know, it could be electricity bill, it could be a gas bill, it could be your fuel for the next month or whatever. But yet they're allowing people who are on 6-figure sums, top earners at Newcastle. John Joe Shelby's on 80k, Jamal's on 70k, but they're not getting affected whatsoever. Or if they are getting affected, we haven't been told by it. I think it's a disgrace, because they're saying that money isn't around in Premier League clubs. They're getting these massive deals, like I've touched upon earlier on, from domestic and international broadcasters, commercial businesses. Yet they're upsetting, and they have probably upset a lot of staff, and they can't really say much about it because they'll probably be risk of the job being jeopardised. I think it's a disgrace considering the timing of it, and that a Premier League club, Spurs included as well, that they're relying on the government, which is effectively a taxpayer, which is us, effectively, because someone has to pay that back. And I know that the government are trying so very hard to help out everyday citizen in the UK, but eventually their loss, someone has to fit that bill, and that has to either be the clubs who are doing it, or it'll be me, you, and Sam, and everyone who's watching as a taxpayer will have to pay that back, and that means our taxes go up. Then we're not going to be happy. It's a snowball effect. I'm very, very surprised in that, but then again, it's Mike Ashley. I'm not surprised at the same time, because look how he's treated Sports Direct employees. Some of them allegedly have given birth in a factory. Some of them couldn't go to toilet breaks. So it doesn't really surprise it, and it's probably not the last that we hear of Mike Ashley, because he's had some horrible PR this past week. And I've said the same thing on BT Sport, which goes out the same day as this radio show, is that he's an absolute disgrace. And I think what's also everyone else, not non-football fans, have heard about Mike Ashley last week because of his carry on with the Sports Direct and Evan Cycles. Non-football fans now know who he is and what he does. And it's nice that the rest of the UK are actually seeing what a vile creature he really is.
Sam, is the main reason that Mike Ashley has done this is because financially he's been hit and he needs help?
Well, apparently in the email that the relevant staff got when they were informed they were being furloughed, the email off Lee Charnley said it was to safeguard the club's future. Read into that what you will, but I refuse to believe that the likes of Newcastle United and Tottenham, I mean Tottenham are twice as wealthy as Newcastle, but by the by, when you've got little old Burnley in comparison, who are paying everybody as normal, not putting anyone on furlough, but paying everyone down to their casual workers, your match steward on a Saturday, they're paying everyone as normal. Why are the likes of Newcastle and Tottenham taking advantage of the government's furlough scheme, which is obviously to benefit the likes of the everyday working man? It baffles me. I mean, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, said on Thursday he called for the Premier League players to take a pay cut and play their part. I'd like to think with the dressing room we've got at Newcastle, that won't be far away. I mean, it might have already come by the time this comes out, but hopefully it does happen.
I just about in Sam. Yes, obviously Matt Hancock obviously has put pressure on Premier League players, but Premier League players haven't really got much to say. It's the owner, isn't it, Lee? Because say John Joe Shelby, Jamal Lascelles, the top earners, the Dubravkas and all them go, yeah, I'll give a certain amount. Mike actually might say, nah, you're not doing that.
Who's the top earner? Is it Miguel Miron?
I wouldn't say Almiron, as I would say Shelby, definitely Lascelles, probably Richie's up there, I would have thought.
I think John Joe is the main one.
Yeah, John Joe's on 80k, but Miggy will be up there. Alan Saint-Maximin must be on quite a big fee as well, convincing him to sign.
Joe Linton, because of the fee as well.
Yeah, the big signing on fees that they would have all got for signing recently. 5% cut. Get it back. You'll get your money back if needs be later on in the year. A 5% cut could probably be feed, and that's probably the right term, feed, at this present moment. Because they've all still got to pay rent, they've all got to pay council tax, that hasn't been slackened by anybody yet. They've all got to pay bills, gas, electric, kids. That 5% cut by all the footballers could literally feed them and their families for probably the next 2 months. And you think about 5% cuts, nothing, but a 5% cut to John Joe Shelby's wage with him is probably, what, $3,000? Which is nothing. And then you consider the rest of the... you could over 2 months. Because it's expected this COVID-19 with the football the 2nd of May is when the games will come back around. I find that hard now. I think it'll be delayed by another 2 weeks. But it's just another PR disaster by Mike Ashley. And it doesn't put the club in good light as well. And again, you come back to the ownership earlier on. Just clever PR and clever marketing. Did it need to go public? If you want to be...
They would have had no choice.
But why couldn't they say, like Daniel Levy, for example, has actually taken a pay cut from his own, which is fair enough. Spurs fans aren't very happy about it. Why Mike Ashley wouldn't do that? Now, people don't like Daniel Levy, but I'd rather have Daniel Levy than Mike Ashley any day of the week. At least Daniel Levy tries to put his business, which is Tottenham, first, rather than these others. I know Spurs are struggling. Probably they still have a lot more money than us, but they had to pay for that big, massive stadium, which is beautiful, you know. We've all been there. I'm just ashamed of the club doing it. I would hate it if my workplace done it.
Just to point out that, yes, Daniel Levy is one of the main men at Tottenham, but it's Joe Lewis that's the owner of Spurs.
Yeah.
So again, he might have the say on that as well. But Sam, Lee has an idea, maybe 5%. You could probably go even as high as maybe 10 or 20%. But say Newcastle were the first team to jump on the bandwagon and go, do you know what? We're going to make an idea, or we're going to give a question out, and we're going to say to the clubs, you know what? Will every single player put 10% in, regardless of what you're on? Because 10%, let's be brutally honest, let's say the lowest could be something about, I don't know, 10 grand a week. That's 10% is what, 500 quid? Are they going to miss that when they can't do anything with it, really? And they're going to get, like Lee says, they're going to get their money back. That would be fantastic PR if Newcastle were the first team to start that. But realistically, could you see other clubs, coming along to it, say 10%, for example?
You've kind of already seen it with, not with players, but Eddie Howe and Graham Potter. They've done it. They've taken voluntary wage cuts. I'm surprised, as we sit here now, no playing squad has done it yet. It can't be far away, surely. There's just...
Why is the amount of... Sorry, Sam, why isn't there more like lower league clubs coming out already? And there's already 3 Premier League teams who are doing it, and there's still loads down that pyramid who haven't done it, who haven't done that yet. I know there's been a couple, but for a Premier League club to come out first, and there's still where Newcastle probably the 5th, 6th club to do it. It's worrying that, it's very worrying, I think.
It's bottom line though, isn't it? It's essentially getting away with paying 80% of your... he's closed down the whole scouting system.
Yeah.
That's the whole scouting infrastructure. Head of recruitment, Steve Nixon, is on furlough leave. It beggars belief. So Newcastle United are currently not doing any scouting. Not there's any games to watch, mind, but all reports and everything, and it's just everything's come to a standstill. And it just beggars belief that a club like Newcastle United are doing this. When, as you say, Lee, little old Crew Alexandra aren't. So it's.
But the thing is, you've just touched upon nicely. There's that the scouting system. Normally, they start looking at players for next season around about March.
It's obviously not just all about watching games, because as we know, there's none to watch. But it's your documentation, it's your report. It's.
Well, look at Joe Linton. He was scouted March last year.
Exactly.
I think the problem as well, I think the Chronicle have said it, that the targets have actually been made for the summer, so they are planning ahead in the sense that they know what they want. And the Chronicle have said, I think Leipzig strike as somebody on the top of their list, maybe. Again, it's all speculation and rumours. But how worrying is this, Lee? You talk, like Sam's touching it fantastically, you're talking about head of recruitment are on furlough leave. This, is any other Premier League club on furlough leave in terms of their head scouts and everything like that? I still see Mourinho at Tottenham's training ground. So they must be still doing the stuff behind the scenes that they can get, that they're allowed to do.
Makes you ashamed, I think. I think it is. Your football club in the Premier League, but then again, you look at the profits that the turnover that the club announce, and I must stress that's not always what they say they are. It's not much that the profits are, but a case of COVID-19, I think it's just put the scarers on everyone. I really do. And I think it's not just Newcastle. You look at all businesses now. I think all businesses are panicking that they don't know what to do with the staff. They don't know what to do with the businesses, self-employed, freelance. I think everyone's at the stage now where it's crept into football, where they're trying to safeguard the future, as Lee Charney would say on the email. But it's astounding that a club who make over £1 million just on match day alone are struggling to pay the average. I don't want to say average Joe at the club, but a cleaner, for example, £400 a week. Whereas the footballers, for me, should be looking at that. And the foundation in particular heavily rely on the club funding that for the staff to go out in the community. That'll now all be stopped now. They'll all have to be doing it remotely. So it's a sign of things to come, and I think you'll see what I'm the one I was very surprised that Newcastle done it at Premier League club, but I think you will see a lot more lower league clubs starting to come out now. League One, League Two, even Championship, in the odd one or two Premier League. I don't think it'll be all the Premier League, but it's. I think COVID-19 coronavirus has put the scares on a lot of people.
It has, and Sam, football clubs, just like any business, don't know how to react to it. And I think Mike Ashley maybe has panicked and gone, you know what, let's just do the safe option and put everybody on a furlough, and financially it helps them for a little bit. But how long can football clubs, and I'm going to make this obviously a little bit different, how long can Premier League clubs go without not having games? Because I know you could talk about, I'll pick a random team. Carlisle United, someone that's not too far away from me and Lee. It's a bit far from Staffordshire. But
50 mile?
Again, Carlisle United, they probably can't, they need football in their area. They need league matches, cup matches, anything to probably keep them going. They could probably go 2 months, 3 months. That's like a summer period for them. And they'll probably go, we need football, we need something. Realistically, how long can Newcastle go without football if they've already put staff on furlough?
It's a bit different with teams like Newcastle because obviously you've got the Premier League money, and the fact is that the season will not get cancelled. It will restart. It's just a matter of when, not if. But for the smaller teams, that's why you're seeing the lower leagues, the non-leagues, that's why you're seeing seasons getting cancelled, so they can restart again kind of as soon as possible, like as you would kind of early August, or they might pull it forward to early July or whatnot. In answer to your question, who knows? This has never happened before. It'll probably never happen again in our lifetime. It's something that doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what you do, what line of work you're in. It's affecting everybody. So, I mean, I'm on furlough. Are you on furlough, John?
So am I.
I mean, we know Lee's a key worker, but yeah, it's so, you know, myself and Johnny have got something in common with Newcastle's head of recruitment. It's bizarre.
I think it's, as I was saying before, Sam, like used to, you'll probably be quite comfortable, but as the longer goes on, the more that you'll worry about, one, do I have a job to go to, two, finances, and three, do I need to start looking elsewhere? It's possibly the worst case scenario. But it also, with going back to Newcastle, is that if that season doesn't get played, it'll have to go behind closed doors to get it done. I think that's where it opens up again another can of worms, because if it gets delayed again, the 2nd of May we're meant to be playing again, but if that gets delayed further, I think you might have to start playing 2 or 3 games.
I think it will.
Probably. And then I think you'll probably have 2 or 3 games behind closed door. There's loss of revenue. What happens with the season tickets? What happens with the fans? What happens with broadcaster? Who has the rights? It just goes on and on and on. And I think that's where it worries clubs again, because there's nothing secure about football. Yes, it'll come back, but will it be the same finances? So, like I say, you're probably talking over $1 million for a match day. That's not going to be there anymore. TV, you then rely on the international rights, your BTs, possibly BBC and Sky, Amazon if they get back involved, I don't know. Clubs will be heavily relying back on TV broadcasts, and just speaking on TV broadcasters as well, they're all struggling at the moment. If you look at how they are, they've got less staff in now because of the coronavirus situations. There's very little filming going on because they can't. You need a crew to do that. So it's very slow paced at the minute. So worrying times for clubs, and not just that, everyone.
It is. Just to go touch on 2 points. I'll go on the broadcasters one in a second, but I'll bit of news from just my family alone. My dad, he works for a company that produces cars. I'm not going to say the company. But he's been put on furlough to at least the end of the month, and the company that he works for are only going to give him 5%. So instead of 100%, he's getting 85%. So already he's kind of working out the maths in terms, well, I'm losing this amount of money already. I know I'm not using certain things, but am I breaking even? Am I losing money? Am I making anything? So already there's pressure from big companies, big car companies, that now are in a situation where they don't know how to deal with it, and they were making a lot of money. Let's just say that. But in terms of going back on broadcasting, the broadcasting companies, Lee, they need full stadiums. They can do it for the one game, like Valencia took on Atalanta, which should never have been allowed to play. You can deal with it with one game every now and then, but broadcasters need full stadiums. Broadcasters will wait and will wait and will wait until the season resumes, because that's how they make their money. That's how they make their money. It's how clubs make their money as well. So I kind of agree with Sam. It's going to be a case of when and not if, and if it has to be delayed even further, and you don't say start until the first week of June, I think broadcasters are more than happy for that to happen, because they know that the end goal will be money, money, money.
I think you're just worried about your rent going up about your dad, aren't you, Johnny?
I have no idea what you're on about. This is just allegations.
I actually think it could, in one sense, work for the broadcasters, believe it or not. Because this is a freak, this will not happen again in, like I say, in our lifetime. If the broadcasters was to say, let's just say it's Sky Sports, the only thing that's going up is the viewing figures. Everyone's at home, everyone's watching. It's not the case where you've got a Saturday job and you're out of work. You'll have the viewing figures shoot up, whether it's on BBC or BT. That is natural. That will happen. So broadcasters, effectively, I don't think they'll go where they'll charge what they want, because we know that's a difficult situation. But I think in one sense that it might work for the broadcaster as a 2 or 3 games. You're all right. The fans need to be there, but I don't think the Premier League and the likes of BT and Sky and BBC are selling the product on the fact it's an empty stadium. I think every league across the world, if it gets delayed, will have to play in an empty stadium. We've already seen Serie A, Juventus, Inter Milan, we had playing games, big games in an empty stadium, and we've seen Ronaldo doing the fake high fives and that, trying to make a good joke of it. I think that will happen at some point this season if it gets delayed. I just think the fans in the stadium, season ticket holders, will suffer. The fans at home will probably benefit more, but in a weird way, with there's no one there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's touch about season tickets, Sam. No email or a letter, depending on how you've reached it, but mainly from email to its members. The big points from that is that they're trying to put pressure on the club to freeze payments, especially for people that are on a 9-10 year deal, which is myself included. Money came out of my account a couple of days ago. I think it was on the 31st it came out of my account, and that is an annual payment. So it is going to happen. It's not being freezed at the minute. Do you believe that Newcastle right now should freeze its payments for the season tickets for people that are on 9-10 year deals, or is it because they're financially struggling they can't afford to do that?
So that money that got taken out of yourself and many other supporters' accounts a few days ago, that should never have happened. We spoke, we touched about the NUFC last week on the show, and it's again how we left it last week was the club had basically said they're not going to do anything, but the NUFC have bitten back, which again is why they're worth their weight in gold, because they have the dialogue with the club to bite back. They can't hold them to account. They're not letting things lie. They're not just going, oh, we tried, forget it. They're pushing. They want a result from this. There's been an injustice here, and they want it resolved. So it's great to see them pursuing this even further, because money should not be taken. It's at least not of all next season, when you don't even know. Next season might not start till October, November, December. Who knows? So how can you be starting to pay for something that's, for all intents and purposes, non-existent at the moment?
So Newcastle, they are the only club that are taking payments for 2020-2021 season. And that is down to the 9-10 year deals. It normally starts at around about March and it'll finish around about February. And then obviously it starts again, but obviously it's still technically the 19-20 season. You said ashamed. You've said it's almost pathetic, really. Especially that it seems like the people at the top of the club don't have a heart. They don't have a ounce of empathy towards the public of Newcastle public or general public of the city. They are the only club taking payments for next season. It says everything about Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley, etc., etc. It's just, you're not surprised, are you?
No, I'm not. The only thing that the club have done since the turn of the year is donate that food to the food bank. But I don't think that is a hit on them because they already paid for the catering. It was going to go to waste anyway. If it wasn't going to go to waste, that's not getting donated. So it's as simple as that. I'm not on the 9-year term deal. I'm slightly different. I pay mine over a shorter period more. So mine's from August to February, where I pay a larger fee to get it over and done with. So there's many fans in different situations. Some pay annually, some pay in a direct debit monthly over a longer period. So it's shorter. I pay mine higher to get it over and done with, and then March, April, May, June, July, I don't have any payments. So I'm not affected yet, but my concern is, will I be affected because of COVID-19, because of the delay of the football season? I said this the other day in our chat, is that if the season tickets go up for us, having to pay for whatever it may be, whether it's that the reduction in staff wages that they have to pay back to the government, it'll be the fans, which is a customer at the end of the day, and the easiest thing that anyone could say is don't go to games. That's easier said than done. For a lot of people, some people pay for subscriptions, some people pay for merch, some people pay for programs. I pay for my season ticket and I love what I do. That's not going to change. However, I do fear that'll go up again with no reasoning. It went up 5%, which isn't massive last year. There was no reasoning behind it. There was nothing. There was no explanation. The season before that was a massive jump. There's no explanation. Again, a human face to tell you why it's gone up. If Lee Charney was to say, oh, it's gone up 5% because of this, that and that, okay, we can not accept it, but we can then say, okay, you've explained it. I think, again, that comes down to the communication with the club. It's never been great. And that's why I said earlier on, is that I'd rather take the hit and get someone to come in who was either even worse than Ashley. I would take that hit now. I'd risk it. I would risk getting rid of Ashley and Charnley, even if he was worse than Ashley, with no hindsight, of course, later on. But I'll be prepared to take that risk because there's no PR communication with the club, with its fans. And without your fans, you don't have a club.
You don't. And Sam, most clubs have freeze payments for its fans, and they do see it as an important part of their club, important part of their community, important part of their business, if you want to go into those sort of terms. It has to be a financial aspect in why Newcastle aren't following this.
Well, no, other clubs have done it because it's the decent, logical thing to do. It's not rocket science behind it. When banks are letting you, suspend your mortgage payments for 3 months, and the government are willing to pay you 80% of your wages, and yet our esteemed owner thinks that he can just charge for next season. I don't know why we should continue to be shocked or whatever, because it just doesn't come as a surprise. But this is what I was talking about earlier about the owners of your Wolverhamptons, your Leicesters. You need an owner to embrace the fan base, the area, everything about it, not just the bottom line, the financial side of things, because it just doesn't work, as we've seen at Newcastle for the past 13, 14 years.
It doesn't. And Lee, how much admiration have you got for the NUFC? Because, like Sam says, they're trying to put pressure on the likes of Charnley, Ashley, etc. But they can only do a certain amount. There is admiration there, of course, but they can only do a certain amount.
They got an answer off the club. The media didn't. The local Chronicle didn't get an answer. The NUFC did. So fair play to them. We've had Alex on the show a few weeks back. He said that Lee Charnley will only talk to him, which, again, that's a problem in itself. He's going to talk to one fan out of millions. I mean, Alex said...
Puts a lot of pressure on Alex, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Alex said, I don't speak for the fans. I have different opinions to my next door neighbour, for example. Like, me and you, Johnny, might disagree. Me and Sam might disagree. You might disagree on the same subject, whatever. There's a different fan. You need probably 20 people in that room to have a different variety on that. And it's the PR again with the club, and it's like Man United have frozen their season ticket holders. Other clubs have. So it just comes down to common sense. It's just common sense or you could do a deal where you could say, okay, we're going to stop the season tickets. However, you're going to have an increase of 25% each month to catch up. Something that just makes sense, because everyone's worried with the coronavirus at the moment. Everybody, and I talk about myself, to my daughter, to you guys, to everyone listening, about it could be anything. It could be financial, it could be about catching it, it could be one loved one, a vulnerable person, and so on. Businesses, everyone's affected. You cannot say that one person isn't, because the whole of the UK, and soon to be probably the rest of the world, will be. I know there's some countries starting to catch it in remote destinations, but the thing is that uncertainty, they're just not helping themselves. And it just stands to show you, like, Mike Ashley's not from the area, doesn't come up north, he's worried. He's got to have security guard when he comes up north. That tells itself about the bloke.
Exactly. So, simple question. Should refunds be offered to fans?
From the payments that got taken out last week? Absolutely. Absolutely. That should be minimum. And again, Lee made a very sensible point of if you delay the payments and then, to catch up, your payments are slightly increased from what they would have been before. It's just logic. It's just sense. This is just a sensible, decent thing to do. It's not rocket science.
We're talking about common sense, and it seems like Newcastle United's hierarchy just don't have that at the minute, and that's the most disappointing thing, has to be said. But get your comments in if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on Nova Radio, if you want to get involved. It is all on our WhatsApp phone number, which Lee has mentioned several times throughout. I'm sure you'll keep on banging that drum. Lee, what is that WhatsApp number?
I don't know off by heart. Yeah, you try to get that back at me, Johnny, because you don't know it. But it is on screen for people who are watching. And you would have heard me say it already.
For sure. Yeah, we're going to finish this part 2, and we're going to have a quick break. In part 3, we're going to be talking about a neighbour down the A19 and how a documentary has revealed facts about their club. Would that work with Newcastle United? That's all on Nova Radio Northeast 102.5 on The Black and White Show.
The Black and White Football Show, Sundays 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Right then, and we are back. So a long conversation surrounding season tickets, club being put on furlough as well. We're going to take a break in just a second, just for the radio side of things. But I just wanted to touch upon the Premier League. Of course, have asked players to consult their own players, the clubs. So, look, I think they're referring to 30% for the players to take a cut and just help out their own club and possibly the NHS and so on. I know Jordan Henderson, Liverpool captain, is at the head of something and trying to arrange like a players' union to get together and try to donate. And I think it's the right thing to do. And I think now in the last couple of days we've seen a couple of momentum take place into that as well. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick ad break, as I say, and I'm going to come back and read out your WhatsApp messages. So make sure you send us a WhatsApp message and see if you can answer this question.
You're the night sky trying to make me see your stars, but the dark gets lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence, and the dark's all that I see. When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. heart makes no sound. I'll find valid in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky.
So the question was, how many games did St James's Park host at the 2012 Olympics? And the correct answer was 6. So well done. Very, very little of yous got all of that. No one in the live chat, but we did have a WhatsApp message come through which got the answer spot on. That was Will again from Belfast. Actually, he said it was 9 games. No, Will, you're wrong. I tell a lie. It was 6. So apologies about that as well. Let's read out some of your WhatsApp messages before we head on to the next section, which is all about Netflix and chill. I think you're going to know what we're talking about there. He has a question. Which 3 current players would you take back at Newcastle, subject to money, wages and attract them, etc.? Dom says that he would go for Wijnaldum, Townsend and Rondon. Who would you bring back? Give us 3 players in the live chat, and I'll read some of your live chat at the moment. We've got someone from Spain, which is Nick. Thank you very much for your message, Nick, on WhatsApp. Each player gave 10% for the salary up to 1 month. They would still be wealthy. It also has to pay for the stadium staff. It could also help to pay for the stadium staff for a year as well, which is rightly so, Nick. I have to totally agree with you. Liam sent in another message and said, now everyone in the UK now knows why we hate Mike Ashley. Thoughts on those people who said we should be grateful to have Mike Ashley because we haven't ended up like Portsmouth, Sunderland, Bolton, Blackburn and even Bury to some extent. To some extent, we have a lot worse owners in the Football League than Mike Ashley. You cannot not say that, because if you look at Steve Dale at Bury, he's a lot worse than Mike Ashley. You cannot say Mike Ashley. We hate Mike Ashley, of course we do. We don't like what at our club, but there's several of owners that are a lot worse than Mike Ashley. At least Mike Ashley hasn't bankrupted us, and I'm not sticking up for him, but we could be in a hell of a lot more situation. We could be a Bolton right now who are heading down to the 4th tier of the division. But you really wouldn't want Mike Ashley as your boss, no matter if you worked at Newcastle United, Sports Direct, Evan Cycles, Goals, whatever you partly owns as well. John says, great show. What do you think will happen with the rest of the season and the cups? I think I've already touched upon a little bit. I think we'll have a couple of games behind closed doors. I just hope that the FA Cup, John, isn't scrapped. That's my only concern as well. Do you think Jetro and Daniel Rose will be a good idea? I presume you mean permanently here. Would add competition. I think I would. If I had to pick 2 of them, I've said this already, I'd rather have Jetro Willems than Danny Rose. Danny Rose hasn't got up to speed yet. We haven't seen the best of him. But your reputation, you'd probably say Rose over Willems. But Willems is 3 or 4 years younger than him. And he's proven I've gotten by, even though he's got that injury. I really, really would. And obviously we've been strongly linked with Edward as well from Celtic. Would you sign him? Well, let me ask you that question back. Is he better than Joe Linton? I think there's your answer as well. And then we've also got another one as well. By the way, I saw you 2 years ago, being in a home game, but it was too quick to have a picture with you. Okay, right. And that's from Andrew from Poland as well. Right, as promised, we're going to be chatting about Sunderland's documentary, and would it be a good thing if Newcastle opened its doors? Before we do that, let's have a look. Rondon, Tauvin and Perez, says Lawrence. He would be those 3 players that I would have back. Rondon, Barr and Townsend, says Chris. Just Rondon for John. Mikel Merino, that's a surprising one. Tell us why, Adam. And Rondon and Tauvin as well. So interesting. Yeah. Right. Gives your players, keep them coming in as well. We're going to talk about the documentary. Here it is, and we'll be back with you in about 20 minutes.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
Well, there's been a very interesting documentary programme, whatever you want to call it, that's been on Netflix. It's obviously Sunderland Till I Die. It's got us thinking here on Newcastle Fans TV and on the Black and White Show, because we're thinking, yes, it's all funny that Sunderland have had 2 series of this now, and obviously it hasn't been great for them. The first series, Simon Grayson took over, which seems a long time ago, in which Chris Coleman got relegated to League One. No spoiler alert there. Series 2, obviously, change of ownership, and then Sunderland go to Wembley, lose to Porto without penalties, and then Sunderland go to Wembley and lose in the last second of the game to Charlton by former Newcastle manager Newcastle player Lee Bowyer. Taking the comedy value out of this, Sam.
You can't take the comedy value out of it. It's an absolute joy. I mean, I haven't even watched it all. I've just seen the best bits, but it's absolutely hilarious. You can't take the comedy out of it. It's too good.
Okay, let's be serious for 1 minute, Sam. 1 minute. Would you like something like this to happen to Newcastle?
It'd obviously be very interesting given our ownership, hence, what we've been discussing on the show so far. It'd be very, very interesting to see what happens behind closed doors. I'd be very surprised if you'd catch Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley talking about a £100,000 cryo chamber that only the MD uses for what, Johnny? What was it?
A bad back.
A bad back. Yeah. But it would be very interesting to see what happened behind closed doors during the likes of Joe Kinnear's tenure, both times at the club, and just different bits that you don't really get to hear about. You'd like to be a fly on the wall. So something like that would be really interesting, but let's face it, it's not going to happen anytime soon for us.
As you can see on the live pictures with Lee, he has got a black and white fan right next to him in terms of his cat. But
just won't leave us alone.
Exactly. I know you haven't watched it, Lee, but other clubs have picked up on it. Manchester City did one not too long ago with Guardiola when they won the league with 100 points. Tottenham are in the making their version, which finishes. Well, it's meant to finish at the end of whenever this season's meant to be, but it'll have Pochettino leaving and Mourinho coming in and how they're different. Could you have liked to see one maybe for last season going into next season with Rafa, leaving the club, and then Steve Bruce coming in, and obviously how the players reacted to it? Because I think it would have been very interesting, and maybe you get to see a little bit more of what Lee Charnley actually does on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the Sunderland stuff. I'm quite... I don't care about them. In one sense of I care about Newcastle first. I know it's always good to have a good laugh at them. I think the Joe Kinnear one would have been interesting. I think Graham Souness one would have as well. Even Keegan in his first time, because a lot of the lads used to go out drinking. Tino, imagine following Tino around the club, around the night out in the Big Market. That'd be interesting. I think it would be good. I've watched a few on Amazon. Leeds United one's probably one I'd recommend. When Bielsa, the Spygate came in, that's a good watch. There's only 6 episodes. I've watched the Man City one. You see different Guardiola because he's effing and balling all over the place, which we don't see. Obviously, of course, he's very calm but moody. But it would be interesting. I don't think the club will allow it. But then again, if you throw money at the club, who knows? You've got to get a yes from everybody. But it would be interesting because we don't get anything back from the club. I know the YouTube stuff's got a lot better recently, but how long will that stay up? But we're starved. Probably more so international fans. They don't get enough content from the club, and that's why they rely on fan-related stuff.
Sam, I don't know how many episodes have you watched, but I've watched both series, and watching the second series yesterday, Charlie Metvin, who had an acting role, he's no longer at the club at Sunderland. He's had an extremely negative effect on him because he has been Lambush with the way he treats members of staff, the way he kind of just acted around in terms of the whole club, his demeanour. He kind of made it all about him. His wife was telling him to calm down in a game against, I think it was the Charlton game, and he hasn't come out of this with any positive impact at all. But Stuart Donald, the owner, has. Stuart Donald, you can kind of, he is a fan. He's a football fan. Is he a Sunderland fan? I don't know, but he's a football fan. And I think heart over heads kind of decided to make decisions, as in the Will Grigg transfer for £4 million. It's something like that. So something that would say at Newcastle. You kind of like to see how they decided to bring in Joe Linton, for example, and it hasn't worked, but they've decided to bring in a Fabian Schär in for the money they paid. It was a good deal. It would just be nice to see something like that, just to kind of go, well, actually, the way they've done it is quite professional.
Yeah, Wigan had their pants down about Will Grigg, didn't they? My word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Lee Charnley's anything like David Brent, which obviously the Sunderland chap is. Look, I mean, Donald's obviously come out of it okay because, as you say, it's apparent he cares. He's obviously inherited one a mess. I mean, Ellis Shaw is an absolute disgrace. You know, he's a very good comparison with our esteemed owner, but you could argue he's even worse. So obviously Stuart Donald's a good guy, but obviously probably just hasn't got deep enough pockets for what is required, really. But there's a lot of things that happen in Newcastle where you'd think, well, what's the decision making behind that? You could go back to the days of even Pardew. Like, what happened during them few years where they obviously had the success of finishing fifth, they had the comeback of the 4-4. You'd love to see the half-time team talk for that. You'd have loved to have seen what happened in the dressing room after Pardew headbutted David Myler and pushing the line out at home to Spurs and whatnot. So it probably happens. Most football clubs, it's just one of these things that you'll never realise. Like the programme The Thick of It, which is obviously about a politics kind of spoof thing. That's the stuff that happens on that show happens in real politics. It's you'll probably be surprised looking at these clubs that stupid stuff like that happens everywhere, but you just never get to hear about it.
Could this have actually helped Newcastle if they'd done something like this? Because Sunderland actually got a lot of credit out of it in the first series, in particular, because it was a real fan experience. Unless you're, in the last 20 years, unless you're at Man United, Liverpool, and I'll put Arsenal and Chelsea in that category, this is every other club to an extent. This happens on, like Sam says, daily, weekly basis. This could have actually helped Newcastle. Like, we'll take the Pardew era, for example. Who was right about Pardew or Ben Arthur? That would have been a good discussion. You know, what was Stephen Taylor like as a leader going into Derby games? Because there was a lot of criticism on the home or the local players, and then the players that came in with actually nailing down, the Derby games are really important, lad. You need to kind of show up to that, because it never looked like that. Would it have been a good thing if we could have seen something like that maybe in that era?
Possibly it might show them that they've got a human side to them as well. Simple fact is, we've only ever heard Lee Charney a couple of times speak to the BBC. How does he conduct himself? So it'd be interesting if he's actually smart than what we all give him, praise for. Is Lee Charney under the dictatorship of Mike Ashley? Is Lee Charney not allowed to say what he really thinks, or does he fear his job? It'll open up a door to a lot of things. We know with training ground bust-ups that happens all the time. There's players get into fights. That's common knowledge. You see the same people 4 times a week, and you're 30 people, and you keep seeing them over and over and over. A lot of those footballers will see them more than the family, because a lot of them obviously internationals. So it's the same in work. You used to probably don't like people who you work with, same as me, and vice versa. They may not like you, and so on, for whatever reason. It does open the door. It'll be interesting to see what happens with transfer dealings. I don't think you'll see all of it, man, because some of it will be quite DPA, keep it hidden, data protection and so on. But even little things like I like the stuff that the club do where it's rare that they do it, but like daft stuff like the quizzes that they do where they do who's the joker in the dressing room. You talked about Stephen Taylor, well, he was one of them. He used to be one of the biggest jokers in the dressing room, and you learn about little stuff like that, and it's because we don't see the human aspect of Newcastle United. We don't. Manchester City are the best at doing it, without a shadow of a doubt, because they've got a media team who proper follow the club inside out, whereas there's no money really in it for the NUFC lads. And little things like, even like Serena Taylor, club's photographer, you know, she's got 2 girls and all it, and she's got a little chihuahua, and not many people know that. You could follow her for a day, and how does she go around filming the players, and where she's got to sit, and angles, and what does she do after that? Just put it on a laptop, and where she's doing it, and is she on the coach? It just opens up that. I think that'll be the next level. I really do. I don't think Newcastle will be the forefront, but for the fan experience to get more, I think that'll be the next level for clubs to go. The documentaries is just a thing, but I mean, we would be starting doing videos on what does such and such wear, you know, little things like that, or what did you buy that day. It would come down to that. It really would. It opens up the door, and I think there's so much more, because let's face it, nowadays footballers are petrified to see recording them. And what's the first thing you do when you see a footballer? Is you get your phone out, don't you, to take a photo or a video. Then there's no human element now with Twitter. A lot of the accounts are run by not even them. So it brings the human side, which will massively, and it'll be a good eyesight, good opener.
Do you think, Sam, now, because obviously Sunderland have done one, Tottenham have done one, Leeds have done one, Man City have done one, is it going to put pressure on other clubs to do it? Because I think Gary Neville made a fantastic point. I think he was doing an off-script thing for Sky about a couple of months ago, and they said, going into 2020, what's the biggest impact going to be going into the next 10 years? And he says Newcastle, or not Newcastle, but Premier League players in particular, will be followed 24/7. And he said literally it'll be a case of when they get up, what they're doing, how they get to work, or as in get to training, all the training sessions to be live, everything from literally finish the training session while they're eating for lunch, questions from the media, everything will be a whole package in which clubs will sell to its fans or to, you know, anybody basically. Is that maybe a similar thing that maybe what Gary Neville said to maybe a Something Till I Die documentary on Netflix?
Yeah, because people will watch it. People will watch. There's a product to sell, so people will buy it. Supply and demand. Oh, Gary Neville, of course, did the documentary on the BBC with Salford.
Yeah,
with their involvement there. So it's becoming more commonplace now. I can't see Newcastle following suit anytime soon, but these TV companies want inside access, and they want access to the players and whatnot because people are interested. How many of us watching this would want like a day in the life of Alan Saint-Maximin?
You would pay for it?
Or something like that. I'd watch it. Most people watching this would watch it.
You would pay for it as well?
Hey?
You would pay for it as well?
Of course you would.
Yeah, because it's something you don't see.
Exactly.
And it's also it's like a privilege that if someone else hasn't seen it, you could go, oh, did you see Alan Saint-Maximin? You know, obviously you've seen the clip when he was flicking over his dog and stuff the other day. What does he do all day? Because he seems a bit of a fun character, a bit loose but on the good side. Like he's very family dominated with his girls and that. Don't see much of his partner, but he goes in his swimming pool, he's friends with Jack Williams, he's in the garden, Dean runs. Little things like that, or someone who's like we say, who's mad. Imagine following Clarence Acuna around. He was off his rocker. Tino Asprilla. But I think BT Sport are doing a lot of their documentaries as well now, not so much on footballers, because I think documentaries is now starting to make its way forward into the world of football, and obviously we've started doing that the last probably year or so as a YouTube channel as well. It's coming more and more popular, and because documentaries are a bit more classier, it's a lot more thought goes into them, a lot more storytelling, which people do like to get lost in that story. Like, you've obviously watched the Sunderland documentary, there was some parts of that and you probably think that was good, that. Although it's Sunderland, you probably think some of the ideas or some of the how they're filmed, or like I'll probably look at it as an editor, different side. So it does open the door, and it's probably the way forward that you'll see more and more. How agree with you, Sam, on that?
Yeah, I think it's, you talk about the players, like, obviously, like the Saint-Maximin in the first series, they kind of took Johnny Williams, who was played for Charlton, ironically, when Charlton beat Sunderland in the summer, and they kind of took him and said, right, tell us your story, basically. And then he was injured, and he mentally didn't really deal with it, and then he kind of overcome it at the end. But by the end of the season, when it was too late, he was in a good place mentally, which meant like he could kind of move into his next club. And they kind of done the same thing with the second series with Nick O'Neill, a young lad who was from League Two, Baldwin, the centre half. They kind of that element as well, like the family side, how it impacts the family of these players as well, because they were getting criticism in Tesco as well. So it was fascinating at times, but ultimately, though, Sam, if the club aren't doing well by the end of it, people will say it's a negative impact. Sunderland in these two series have lost 2 Wembley games, and they've also been relegated to a division. So has it worked?
You can't blame it to that, because obviously you have the Man City one and they had the record-breaking season. The thing is, success is great to watch, but failure is even more interesting to watch. So that's why there's been a season 2. Let's face it. If it was following a kind of dull mid-table championship season, would it have got a season 2? Really, probably not. But that's why they bring in the human aspect, the human stories to the players. BBC did it with the Salford one that I touched upon earlier, because obviously a team like that, at a time like that, you've either got players that are on the downfall or players that are on the upgrade. So there's always human stories to be told, which is probably the most interesting part about it, because that's what your interviews on Sky Sports or BBC's post-match, whatever, that's what you don't get to hear about.
I'll tell you what a good one is, obviously that Leeds one as well, because with the Leeds one, you see James, who's now at Man United, because he was meant to go to Leeds in January, and that deal broke down literally in the dying seconds, and you actually see the director of football actually break down and cry. Totally something you wouldn't see on Sky Sports or BBC or whatever. He breaks down crying because he's upset about not getting the deal done, for the player as well. Obviously I know he's went to Man United, but it was a real eye-opener on that. The documentary with Leeds follows Bielsa, it follows fans, it follows the footballers, and it also follows the director and the owner as well. So it's a real eye-opener from the fan to club officials to players and what they're all going through during that season. And it's a really good eye-opener. And like I say, I think it's a way forward that you'll start seeing more and more, whether the club allow access. Look, if it's money in a big company like Amazon company and say, right, we'll pay you, I don't know, throw a figure out there, £5 million to film you this season, would the club turn that down? At how much you want?
I think they'd want at least 10 million, at least.
But it's how much can you resist money? It's all about money at the end of the day. It's not about access. If Mike Ashley gets 10 million, let's just say it's 10 million, right, for access to training, interviews, fans, staff, directors, I think they'll do it. I think the club will probably have massive reservations and certain restrictions, but I think they'll do it.
In the Manchester City one, they had final say. So basically, Amazon gave them the copy of what they wanted to put out to the public, but Manchester City had the final say of what went out at the end. And I don't think they changed many things at all. Yes, they won the league with 100 points, and I think they won the League Cup, and I think it was the FA Cup quarters and the Champions League quarters as well. So they had a very, very good season. I don't think that was necessarily the case for Sunderland, but again, it comes back to this age-old question in finance with the owner, etc., etc. So it is fascinating. I don't know whether there's going to be a Series 3. Who knows? But obviously, with everything that's going on in the world, we're not too sure if that's going to happen. But I think my last question to you is both on this: is that with Sunderland doing this, Newcastle haven't done this. Mike Ashley, this could help him if he was still owner. maybe to have like a background or people to understand how maybe a takeover deal was to happen. Could it put a positive impact, Sam, on Mike Ashley if he was to do this, just to get a bit more access out of him?
Yeah, it would, 100%. It'd certainly improve kind of communication between the fan base and the ownership, because at the moment, as we all know, communication's non-existent, and it hasn't been existent for years and years now. So it would absolutely, obviously, chances are he wouldn't come out of it overly well from the video standpoint itself, but when you take a step back and, you know, appreciate that he would have allowed the access, he would have kind of welcomed the communication, a new stem of communication between the fan base and himself, then that would be applauded, but it won't happen.
I've got the title of it, just in case it happens. It's Newcastle United, black and white, no grey areas. That would be a good title for it. There you go. Get your titles if you think that Newcastle could do this. Would it be a positive thing? Would it be a negative thing? You've seen Sunderland lose a few finals and massive games. If Newcastle were to do that, say they get to Wembley and lose a semi-final or a final of an FA Cup, will be a tough watch for a Newcastle fan. But yeah, get your comments in if you're listening or watching rather on our on YouTube or Facebook, etc. Or if you're listening on Over Radio Northeast, the WhatsApp number will be mentioned by Lee as well, so he'll give you all that information. So it's goodbye from Sam and me, but it's back to Lee.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
And we are back, and we are entering our final section, so please get your WhatsApp messages coming in for our final section, where Eisha's going to be joining us on the phone, and we're going to be talking about our first loves. So what we mean by first love is your favourite footballer, maybe it's your first ever one, maybe it's a manager. Hello, Eisha.
Hello.
Hi, are you alright? How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Could you mute your TV for us?
Yeah, it's muted.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, good show.
Thank you very much. How long have you been watching for then?
Most of it.
Right, cool. Well, before we crack on and we'll talk about a few of our first loves, in particular yours, I've got three messages have come through. Okay, are you ready for these?
No.
Right, don't worry, they're all football related. John from Durham asks you, does Eisha blame her family having not a trophy won when it could have been easily picked another team?
Okay, nice, yeah.
So,
shall I?
yeah, please.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about, I know what to say about that, just about my dad and everything, I guess.
Yeah, if I wait, why do you support Newcastle? That might be a better answer.
Yeah, I'll just explain about why. Okay, cool. Oh, one sec. So, wait, am I on live now?
Yes, you're live with us. You're live to the nation.
Sorry. Okay, so basically my dad, although he's Irish, he's always supported Newcastle ever since I was a child. And it's pretty much his influence, because he was the one that, so I was born, this is giving away my age, I was born in 1990, so to reach like 5, 6 years old and be taken to games was like a really defining era for my dad to take me. And yeah, so it was down to my dad actually.
Nice one, Dad. Big fan of your dad. Right. Second question, Kieran from Spennymoor asks, who does Eisha rate as the best player in the squad?
Right now?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, well, I mean, I'd like to say saint-maximin, just because although I'm tempted to say Almiron in recent form, I think for me, saint-maximin has been that powerful, explosive spark that it's taken us to on a different dimension this season in particular. So I'd say saint-maximin.
Good answer. I would agree on that. How long do you think he'll be with us?
Oh God, I dread to even think that. Honestly, I dread to think that. The amount of attention he's attracted globally now since his short tenure at Newcastle this season, it's quite scary to think. I mean, I'd like to think we have him for the next couple of years, but I really don't know. He seems like an energetic, charismatic type of player, and if we lock him down, we'll be very, very fortunate. Not too hopeful, though.
Yeah, it's the same old sell on for you. Final question comes from Charlotte from York, who asks, what's it like being a woman in football? Do you feel more respected?
Oh, that's a nice question, isn't it? It's cool. I like it. I mean, football's been a large part of my life since for as long as I can remember. I used to play, and then I followed football, and then obviously I'm into football coaching as well, and I've recently just finished my scouting qualification, which is also really exciting. So yeah, for me it's in terms of working in media, I haven't had any bad experiences, and if anything, it's quite refreshing to sort of prove people wrong, perhaps, because me in particular, I come from like a modelling background as well, which can be perceived as quite glam, and I don't know. I mean, I can differentiate my hobbies from my actual career, and if I've worked as a model, why can't I also have knowledge in football? So I guess in a way it's just nice to sort of surprise people in conversation when you talk about your passion, even though it's totally unrelated to what you've been doing for most of your life. I mean, in my case, that's modelling and football, which are two very different things, I guess, now I come to think about it.
Well, we're delighted to have you. Right, let's talk about your first love. Who is it and why?
I think this is no secret at all. It's obviously Ginola.
Why?
Obviously. Well, there are loads of reasons. I think, okay, first off, my first match, which I spoke about recently, was in September 95. Now, that was his first season at Newcastle, and although he didn't score in the match I attended, it was just really cool to see him live, because so he actually, for him to sign with Newcastle at that time, the amount of money that was spent in that summer, you know, we got Les Ferdinand for £6 million, we got Shaq Hislop, we got Warren Barton, for example. I think for us to sign him for £2.5 million, I really think that was a bargain of the decade for what he brought to the team. He just fit in perfectly. The chemistry and the dynamics of the team, it was like he was made for us. And now recently, obviously I'm a bit older, I can really read into how him as a former player, how he reflects on his time at the Toon and his relationship with Kevin Keegan. It really was something special, because he refers to Kevin Keegan as an older brother figure, for example. And I know Ginola sort of struggled with managers over the years, like, for example, in the 94 FIFA World Cup for France, like Gerard Houllier blamed him, like publicly blamed him for them getting eliminated. Then later on when he was at Spurs, do you remember, he was at Spurs, he had a really, really good season, and George Graham, he publicly labelled him as a single-minded player. So, and obviously Dalglish didn't want him in the squad, he wasn't part of his plans. So to sort of see how he was a magical player, he brought a lot to the table, but it was just under the right management. I can just appreciate that, how his relationship with Kevin Keegan really allowed us to, we benefited from that majorly, and he played a huge part in the entertainers.
Yeah, he won player. No, it's fine. He won player of the year, didn't he? When he was at Spurs as well, picked up the trophy.
Exactly, and not only players of the year, I think it was the Football Writers Footballer of the Year as well, and that was at the age of 32. So imagine a 32-year-old coming away with Player of the Year and the Football Writers Footballer of the Year, like, and to be publicly criticised by George Graham as a single-minded player. Like, okay, he might not have been a team player, but I mean, like we saw, we benefited from it majorly at Newcastle because Kevin Keegan was, you know, there was just that dynamic there between them, and he got the best out of him.
What was his strengths? Because Shearer's always said that Ginola always frustrated him, because you seen it in the previous season in 95-96, the amount of headers that Les Ferdinand was getting numerous of times. But then the following season, Ginola kept cutting back, and it was really frustrating Shearer. But what was his strengths?
I think his blend of skill and inventive wing play, it was just really exciting to watch. You could tell watching him that he had a unique flair about him. And to a certain extent, selfish players. I don't want to throw away that word around, and use it loosely, but in terms of feedback, obviously, we heard from managers, like, for example, George Graham, who said he's a single-minded player and whatever, and even it was a similar case with Gerard Houllier and the World Cup incident. To a certain extent, with selfish players, like, there are good things to come out of that, and we saw good traits of him on the pitch, and although that doesn't mean, Alan Shearer might be frustrated at times, but it worked out in certain situations, and it got us the results that we needed to really progress in those years.
Got a great question off Jason, who just put in the live chat. Which teams would Ginola fit into now in today's game?
You know what? That's a really hard question, because I really think unless he was under the right management, it just wouldn't work. Like he said that under Kevin Keegan, he said something. He said in an interview something about, I liked how Kevin Keegan played me because he didn't put me under any tactics. He allowed me to express myself and play that I want to play. So it's hard to say, because unless you have a manager who sort of leaves the reins to you and lets you do what you want effectively in terms of creativeness, it's not going to work. Teammates won't respect you, they won't gel, the dynamic won't be there. So it's a really difficult question. Unless Kevin Keegan was managing him again, who he speaks so fondly of, I don't think it would work. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think, Liz?
I think you only like David Ginola because you fancy him, Eisha.
No, seriously, he was like Hercules. What is with that?
Hercules.
Yeah, with that hair, and when he used to take his shirt off to celebrate. Oh my god, he was not normal.
And moving on, right. Tell me about the time, because obviously that was my first season, 95-96, under Keegan.
Yeah.
What do you remember being a little girl? Because obviously I've seen your pictures as well of you being donned in like loads of Newcastle goalkeeping tops. What was your early memory of being a kid supporting Newcastle in the 95-96?
I have great memories, because I'm from down south and there aren't many Newcastle fans here. So for me to sort of parade around at my football training wearing all these kits, like that Shaka Hislop goalkeeper's kit, which I spoke about recently, for me to go around and proudly support my team like I do now, it was great, because we're a minority down here, and, being so close to North London, naturally there are a lot of Chelsea fans, Spurs fans, Arsenal, you name it. So I think to be a minority and to proudly, go around with my dad and be able to attend the occasional game up in Newcastle, it was a fantastic time. I mean, it still is. I always proudly support my club regardless, but I think to be introduced to the club during that era is to be part of that magic is something that will make me love Newcastle for the rest of my life. Like, it will always have a special place in my heart because of that era. Yeah,
I would agree, and that's why Sam, who's on Newcastle Fans TV, supports Newcastle because of the great times that we used to have. Now, I just want to talk about, before I let you go, is my first hero, because it kind of links in with David Ginola, is my first hero was Les Ferdinand. And obviously when Les Ferdinand came out, was my first ever memory was we sold Andy Cole in January 94. And that was my first ever, what a horrible memory to have. And then I really got into football when I was like 8 or 9 year old in the 95, 96, and that probably shows my age a little bit now. But I loved Les Ferdinand. I absolutely loved him because family life wasn't great as a kid, but he was like my first hero. And the amount of goals that Sir Les got, and he only spent 2 years at Newcastle, but he still comes up to do talkings, and he's still very much a loved figure. Do you think like the club, we know that the current situation at the moment, but in the future, if we could have ex-pros such as Les Ferdinand, Rob Lee back, like Liverpool have legends back, I think that'll be a good thing. And I think also it should be doing right.
Do you mean like in terms of like managerial managerial roles.
Not even that, and maybe
Like
ambassadors and stuff. We don't have nothing like that at the club.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Like,
No, you're right, because I think the former players at Newcastle, whether they've spent, 6 years there or 2 years there, the ones who have really still got Newcastle, like, a place in their heart, they're the ones that would be the perfect ambassadors. Like, even that, similarly to there's Ferdinand David, he only spent 2 years at the club, and he even said in an interview those 2 years felt like 10 years, and he's so reluctant to leave. But obviously he couldn't do much because Dalglish didn't want him there, but it was like he had a sense of belonging there. And I think the fans feel the same for Ginola, and of course Les Ferdinand as well. So yeah, I think it would be good to have these former players to represent the club, and we all have that history with these sort of players, don't we? We can relate to them and we can appreciate what they brought to the club and how they still value the club to this day.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. It's like your connection back to the club again. And then before I let you go, we signed Alan Shearer for a world record fee, 15 million. And the goals, man, that Shearer and Ferdinand scored in that 96-97 season, again as a young girl, you must have thought, I'll support Newcastle, it's easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That partnership was explosive. And I think it's just incredible that Kevin Keegan had anticipated that, getting Alan Shearer on board. He already anticipated how it could work. And we all know, striking partnerships don't always work. It was a risk that might not have paid off, and luckily for us, it paid off, and it was fantastic. And actually, it's incredible that Andy Cole had the number 9 shirt, passed it to Les Ferdinand, and just a year later, Les Ferdinand had to pass it to Alan Shearer. And you'd think that there might be some animosity in that, but Les Ferdinand has said in recent days, he said that I never held a grudge for passing on the shirt, and that just goes to show what the sportsmanship that goes into that, and his willingness to make the partnership work with Alan Shearer, and how it paid off in the end for us is something really to appreciate. Because in this day and age, I don't know, those things are tricky. It wouldn't have been easy for Kevin Keegan to expect Les Ferdinand to hand it over to Alan Shearer after such fantastic performances on Les Ferdinand's part.
Well, Eisha, thank you very much. We're going to wrap up. Thank you very much for coming on the phone, and stay safe. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, not at all. Thanks so much for having me. I'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, and that was Eisha, and that is coming up towards the end of the show. Thank you very much for all of your interaction on the live chat over here, and also for your WhatsApp messages. We'll be back again next week, whether it's in the studio or more than likely to be remotely. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. We're switching down. Bye-bye.
The Black and White Football Show, Sunday 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.